studies indicate that less than 20% of the people on Earth are using AI on a regular basis. And that means once a day or more.
The only problem with AI right now, it doesn't know how to deal with humor.
Just speaking to AI, as you and I are talking, Vit, really will yield the best results.
Recently, there's also been this hype going on around vibe coding.
If we fast forwarded just a little bit, every time, literally every time, there were more jobs available because the technology created opportunities that we didn't even imagine beforehand. We're going to have a lot more opportunity as individuals to be working again in independent capacities in a way that meets our particular passions and interests.
Can you break down your own framework or method?
AI didn't choose to lie to me. It didn't choose to deceive me. It didn't go, well, this is the truth, but I'm going to tell Jonathan this, unless that's how it was programmed.
We all still have time to do something about it. What would you recommend to start upskilling yourself with? What kind of tools to learn?
We can follow a formula and we can create excellent prompts that'll give us incredible responses back from the AI. And I believe in a 4-step formula. The first step, it's very simple.
Welcome. This is an Hour of Innovation podcast, and I'm your host, Lyoshin. Today we have Jonathan Mast, founder of Whitebeard Strategies and a leading voice in using AI effectively. We will discuss how to choose the right AI models, how to get good at prompting, and why leading those tools isn't just useful, is essential for staying relevant or building a successful business. Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Vit. Looking forward to being here.
Yeah. So before we start, could you tell us a little bit about your background and the work that you do today?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So my background is actually in sales and marketing, and spent much of my career in the digital marketing field. Actually, in 2010, started an agency and ran that for a little over a dozen years. And then when OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, and it was something that was more attainable, usable, easier to be used, I started using it more and was just candidly blown away by the ability to get so much done, the ability to save time, and that I'm like, this is so cool. And then I saw a lot of people being scared of it, going, uh-oh, it's going to take our jobs. It's going to, this, that, and everything else. And I'm like, no, really, this is going to be amazing if we give it an opportunity to be amazing. And so I decided I really wanted to teach people how to do that. And I'm a very practical person. I'm an ADD entrepreneur. And so I'm not into the theory. I'm not into what we're going to be able to do 3 months from now or a year from now. It's like, what can we do today in order to make our lives better? And that just really excites me.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I feel kind of similar to this. There's a lot of, it's like scale, right? Some people are very scared of it and some people very optimistic. And with the amount of information we get, and it's hard to keep up. So it's totally understandable. Yeah. So let's jump into it. So we have all these different tools like ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and whatnot. And how do you suggest people pick which one to use?
Well, I think the simplest answer to me is the one that they have available to them. AI can help us make such dramatic productivity increases and time savings that searching for the perfect tool, while certainly enticing and fun, wastes a lot of time. The reality is, if you're a Microsoft shop and you've got Copilot in front of you, whether you're a Google shop and you've got Gemini, or if you've got ChatGPT or Claude, or for that matter, if you're using something free like Mistral, those models may not be the absolute best for every scenario, but they're going to allow you to take such a significant leap from where you are today without them, that using that model today, while maybe paying attention to what you might want to use tomorrow, is okay. Using the model you have today is what I recommend, because it's really enough to make those monumental advances.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then also, certainly there must be some differences in them. From your own experience, have you noticed any significant differences in them?
Absolutely. I don't know about significant. There are definitely differences, and I suppose it depends on your use case as to how significant those
Mm-hmm.
differences are. As a general rule, I think ChatGPT's got some of the broadest use capabilities because it does so many things. It's got an incredible deep research tool. It makes amazing images now with their newest 4.0 release. It is obviously a great overall AI engine. Their entire ecosystem that they have around custom GPTs, where you can train a GPT on data that you provide it, I think
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely amazing. And the way they've done that has worked out very well. But yet there are similar things that we can do on Claude and similar things that we can do on Gemini. So I think those three in particular, if we talk ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, they I grew up out in the country, but they would all fit with, as we would say, in a bushel basket. They'd all fit in a fruit basket because they're close. There's some differences, but they're all very close overall.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine all of them have a different plugins for like audio and pictures and video and things like that. Are there differences in those from your experience?
There are, I mean, and then we haven't even talked about Grok, which is a
Yeah.
newer tool that's on the place that does a lot of that as well. So, some things, for example, Claude doesn't create images for us at this point in time. The others
Mm.
all do. Sora, which is part of ChatGPT or part of at least OpenAI, does create video. Google's new VO2 does a great job of creating video, but neither neither Grok or Claude will create video. Claude, on the other hand, is really good at data analysis and it does a tremendous job of that. Probably the best writing tool that's out there if you're creating content. Gemini has got one of the largest context windows. So if you've got lots of data you need to feed, Gemini 2.5 is a tremendous tool because it's got nearly 10 times the memory, so to speak, that ChatGPT does. So, if you've got you can upload multiple like large books and have it analyze that because it can take all of that in one swoop, so to speak.
Yeah, okay. That's good to know because I remember in my early days I tried to use for this podcast. In fact, I tried to use the transcript, and ChatGPT wouldn't take it because it was too long. And now
Yeah.
they improved it. Now it actually takes the whole file. So over time, I guess as technology gets cheaper, maybe, or as they, I don't know, get more money, they can afford it to let us use more features.
And that's just part of the nature of AI right now. Literally, we're seeing changes every month that in many industries take years to happen. So things are
Hmm.
moving so rapidly. I regularly see, just using ChatGPT, which is the tool I use most often, I regularly see refresh your browser because a new version's available. They've
Hmm.
updated something, and it happens many times per day even. So we're just seeing lots and lots of updates at this point in time. Some that they tell us about and some that I think they're testing and trying to see how we react to them.
Yeah. Which one do you think is best for business use versus personal use?
I don't really know that there's a difference between them in my mind. I think they're all the tools we're talking about are very good at any of those. And we haven't even begun talking about, for example, the various Chinese models that are out there that are very
Hmm.
impressive. Definitely have some security concerns for different people depending on where in the world you may be. But again, other options that are out there that are very impressive and provide some really good capabilities. So I think, again, I'm going to go back to where I started. I really believe that the tool that you have available to you, whether that's through your employer or if not, and you're looking for a free alternative, whatever you have is going to allow you to do so much that the model you're using isn't an excuse for why you can't do something for really the most part.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it just sometimes when first OpenAI released ChatGPT, that's all we had, and everybody jumped it, and it kind of became the most popular. But now, a few years later, I keep hearing people have a preference. I use this tool because it does whatever, or that other tool, and I'm always curious and asking experts like you, what like really is it that different? Because I believe it's very close.
I think they're very close. Absolutely, we have our preferences. I often compare it to automobiles.
Hmm.
If we all have our favorite brands of automobile that we drive, and many of us swear by the brand that we like and that we've bought many of over the years. But yet, if we all agree to go out to the pub this weekend and we all drive, we're likely all to get there in our different brands and like the brands that we drove. But if we go to drive a buddy's car, or his pickup or whatever the case may be, and I get in, I may find it confusing at first because the blinkers may be in a different spot and the windshield washer may be in a different, and the bonnet, hood pop may be. So everything's a little bit different in those vehicles, but they all do really the same thing. And once you get used to it, you hop in your car and it feels great. Your buddy hops in your car and he's like, hang on, I can't find out where this is, just because it's slightly different than the vehicle he has, but they do the same thing.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I need to remember this and steal it from you.
Dude, feel free anytime.
Recently there's also been this hype going on around vibe coding.
Yes.
Are you familiar with it? How you feel about that? Do you have any insights? What's going on?
Yeah, so vibe coding is essentially when people like myself that are not programmers use AI to create programs, and I'm oversimplifying it, but that's the simple version.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really amazing in the fact that I can now, as an entrepreneur, I can have a concept and I can bring that to MVP or minimum viable product, probably without having to develop or engage a large development team. Now, to get it perfect and get it finished out, I'm going to need that development team. But to find out, do I have a viable product? Is something I can sell? All that type of stuff is really great. And sometimes it's just I need a tool to do something that it wouldn't be practical to pay a development team to do, but I can, with AI, create that by just describing the tool that I want, the functionality that I'm looking for. And even better than that, for people that go, but I don't know how to program at all. Not only can AI program that for you in many cases, but it can tell you how to implement it, where to host it, what to do, so that even if you don't have that experience, if you can follow directions, you can get there. So vibe coding is becoming really, really popular, and I think is going to probably increase just because of the fact that the average user can go, wow, I wish there was something that did this. And you can have a discussion with Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT and ask it, how can I do that? And it may come back and say, well, we could create a browser extension to do that, or we could create this to do that, or you could create a standalone app. And as you describe what you want, it can build it out. Now, again, I want to be clear. I think to get a final market-ready product, you're going to need developers that have skill. But where the exciting thing to me comes in is if those developers are using AI tools, it can amplify their skill and experience, and they can now develop at a significantly increased pace and probably develop better because they're going to be able to catch problems long before somebody like myself that was vibe coding could do.
Yeah. And I think another big part of this is like having an assistant next to you and double checking everything for you, right? Helping you test, helping you write those tests and things like that. Because in software development, we had tools like CI/CD, which was catching all these issues and like continuous integration, deployment, test, and all these things. Now you're going to have this agent sitting next to you and double checking everything, for looking for typos. Like my favorite joke with development teams is when we find a bug, I always say, you forgot comma somewhere. And
yes,
and
absolutely. Yes.
And AI could catch those simple typos and things like that sometimes create issues. Yeah.
No,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about prompting and how to get good in that. So can you break down your own framework or method, if you can, how you define, like when you need to do something, how do you come up with prompt that is great and perfect and runs? And
I do. I think one of the common problems that a lot of people run into that when they start working with AI is they start trying to compile a list of their favorite prompts because it's natural. We want to have this list of prompts that we can go reference. The problem is it doesn't take long to amass literally hundreds, if not thousands of prompts. And then when you need one, finding that can be really difficult and very time consuming. So my recommendation to my students is that we embrace what we call the perfect prompting framework. And that means we can throw out the lists of prompts because we don't really need them. We can follow a formula and we can create excellent prompts that'll give us incredible responses. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. Give us incredible responses back from the AI. And I believe in a 4-step formula. The first step, it's very simple. Tell the AI what type of expert it needs to act as, because it's been trained on so much, that helps narrow down to make sure we're in the right spot. Not necessary, but helpful. The next one is very necessary and incredibly helpful, and that's providing context. Normally, when we go to AI, we just ask it a question and it gives us an average okay response. And we're like, well, that's not really good. That didn't work so well. And it's typically because of the fact that we didn't give it appropriate context. So we need to provide the context about what we're doing. Then we need to ask it the question. Now, 2 and 3 can be done in either order. It doesn't really matter. But part 4 to me is probably the single most important. You can forget the rest of them as long as you do part 4. And that's you end the prompt with ask me any questions you have. AI is smart enough to know what data it needs to give you a great response. So if I, for example, was writing a press release and I went and had AI write a press release for me, I could say, write a press release for me about this topic and ask me any questions you have. As long as I ask that last part, now it will go and say, hang on, Jonathan didn't give me these relevant bits of information that I need to write a good press release, and it'll ask me those questions. And then when I answer, I'm going to get a good response. AI is taught, though, to assume. So if we don't add that onto the end of our prompts, it's been programmed to go, well, don't ask Jonathan again because he's going to decide he doesn't want to use this if there's too many questions. So it just fills in the blanks. And what does it do? A lot of times it fills the blanks in wrong. And as a result, then we get responses we don't like. So I recommend a simple 4-step framework. What type of expert, background information, your question, and most importantly, what questions do you have for me?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It just hit my brain. We call it artificial intelligence, but it's the same thing. It's kind of dummy because unless you ask this question or clarification and go back and forth like in a normal dialogue with another human, you can't get to the bottom of the issue, right? To get that answer that you're looking for. The same thing here, pretty much.
Absolutely. Absolutely 100%. And I think that's a really key thing that people run into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And then, well, now that we talked about your framework, when you're teaching people, what common mistakes do you see that people make when they write in prompts?
I think probably the biggest one is that they tend to overcomplicate and overthink things. AI models are what they call natural language processing models or large language models. They're trained on language. And
Mm-hmm.
so we often try to think, should we think as a programmer? And while there are times that using certain programming techniques can be beneficial, for the vast majority of what most of us are going to do, just speaking to AI as you and I are talking, Vit, really will
Mm-hmm.
yield the best results. And I think a lot of times people try to overcomplicate and think, well, I need to, what do I want it to act as? Well, I really need to think about that. No, you don't need to think about it that much. Just, you're an expert at whatever you want done. And for, all the information, if you don't have the relevant context to give it, just make sure you ask that 4th step, which is ask me any questions you have, and it will then fill that in for you. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is people, I think, tend to overcomplicate.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about this? I heard it somewhere, I think on X, somebody wrote this, that people are so used to Google keyword searches and they're trying to come up with this short keyword type searches and use the same techniques in ChatGPT, for example. What do you think about that? How do we change that mindset in people that now it's not keywords anymore? It's more than that.
I think this is a really major change in our thinking, and it's going to take a while for a lot of people to really embrace that because it's been so ingrained in us really since the internet first came out back in the mid 90s. It's been all about keywords. So we're 30
Mm-hmm.
years later having lived with keywords, and now all of a sudden the experts are telling us keywords are much less important than they've ever been. It's now about becoming a topical expert. It's about having authority in the area that you want to talk about. And AI can really help with that. That's the good news because AI can help us identify what type of content do we need to create in order to be seen as an expert in these areas. And I think that makes a tremendous difference. But I think, we're probably literally years, if not many years, from people really changing that mindset that it's all about keywords because today it isn't. It's more about the concept that you want to talk about. I don't have to give my prompt a particular keyword or anything else. I simply can communicate as you and I are, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
do a great job of responding to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any habits or any techniques people should start using and kind of trying to change themselves right now? that you can recommend?
Well, that's a great question. I think, probably the thing I would recommend to most people is that studies indicate that less than 20% of the people on Earth are using AI on a regular basis. And that means once a day or more. I think the biggest thing I would encourage is, instead of thinking about AI as, oh, could I use AI to do that? I think we should start our task processes with, how could I use AI to help me do that? Because when we look at it from an AI first perspective, in other words, AI is our first choice, doesn't mean it's always possible. AI is not going to do my grocery shopping for me. It's not going to wash my dishes. It's not going to fix everything. But if I start looking at things with an AI first, as into how do I use this to help me achieve my goals and my objectives, I think we'll find that we start using AI much better and much more productively.
Yeah. Are there, following up on this, are there any sort of like workflows, or if you will, sequence of tasks that people, for job, for example, for my profession, for example, that people can start assembling or adopting? Like, I know I use specific workflow for this podcast, for example.
Sure.
For specific steps in the process, I use AI in a certain way. It helps me come up with interviews and questions and production and release and all these things. Did you find anything like that useful, or do you have any of those workflows that you teach people?
It really depends upon your individual use and upon the what you're trying to accomplish. But yeah, we're big proponents of developing those workflows for you. And we
Mm-hmm.
generally start with a fairly generic workflow that will work for most people, but we encourage our users to take the next step and customize that workflow to fit your specific needs. Because I do a podcast as well, but my guess is the manner and the order in which we're doing things, and probably even a few of the things that we're doing, that are a little different between podcasts. And as a result of that, we'd probably need a workflow that was maybe 80% similar, but 20% different. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're big fans of workflows. And part of the reason is, with AI, we can teach AI what those workflows are, and then AI will help us through each step of those. And with the advent of agentic AI, which is now coming on the scene, it actually means we could give a workflow to an AI engine, and it could literally work its way through the workflow for us. So it could take the down and go find the audio file from the podcast. It could download it, it could transcribe it, it could take the transcript and pull out the key takeaways. It could then create the social media post to promote it. It could create the short snippets for the YouTube shorts. It could do all of that. It could then create social media posts that we're going to send to the guests to help them promote it. It could create emails that our email system could send, and then ultimately, with agentic AI, it could do most of those things. So we're moving very quickly to where those workflows are absolutely critical in the overall experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be great, because right now it's still a lot of manual tasks and juggling things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it would be nice to have maybe somebody out there can build a system like that is pretty flexible and can support this. Do you have any success stories from maybe your customers or students, if you can mention, about how they started using AI for something and like they tripled or quadrupled their performance or anything like that?
So I've got a number of different things that we could look at. One of the most impressive ones to me is actually somebody that was originally hurt by AI. They had
Mm.
a very successful copywriting business. We're writing ad copy. They're very good at it, but they tended to work mainly with small and medium-sized businesses. And what they found out over the last year and a half is that most of those businesses have decided to use AI to write copy. And that's really just decimated their business. And so you may go, Jonathan, why are we talking about this? Well, this same owner decided to take his 40 years of experience and put it into a custom GPT that he now delivers to clients as a product. So
Mm.
now, instead of the clients paying him to write and paying a team, and he had 70 people on staff, it's now him and two additional admin people, and they're selling this service, this custom trained model, to their clients, not spending as much money. But he went from 70 employees down to 3 employees. And used AI to respond to the market needs. And that's the part that I think is so neat. Instead of watching his business, and one of the few businesses that was really negatively impacted by AI, he
Mm-hmm.
embraced it and said, well, this is the change. This is where future is going. How can I use this in a way that we can amplify the skill and experience that they have and provide more value to their clients? And now he has more clients than he ever had and is doing better at the end of the day because their profit margins are excellent. And
Yeah.
people may go, well, hang on, what about the 67 people that lost their jobs? Well, they're now learning how to use AI to continue to do what they're doing, but do it even better because they've now have, again, that experience that AI can amplify when they learn how to use AI effectively.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think that's the optimizations that we want to see in the future, and we will see in the future, right? Like how can you scale it to this and have, instead of having people sitting there scratching their heads, come up with things, we can use models who can do that. We can train them on past experience. I think this is a good
Absolutely.
example. Yeah, I was thinking about this social media managers or content creators and people like that when first AI came up, and I said, well, now they're going to be out of the job. Now it's all become easy, but it's not, because you still have to know how to prompt. You still have to know, a lot of things and be expert in this. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, from your perspective, what do you think will be the professions of the future, if you will, that AI will create? So everybody's talking about losses of jobs and things like that. But do you think any new professions or jobs will actually evolve with AI?
I do. I do, and I'm a bit of a student of history. If we look back in history, when the printing press came out, there were
Mm-hmm.
predictions that, oh my goodness, this was going to ruin all kinds of jobs and all these people were going to be put out. And when the internal combustion engine came out, well, actually, the steam engine came out, they said the same thing. And then the internal combustion engine, and then the internet, and then the PC. We've been through this many, PC and internet, I went wrong order, but we've been through this many, many times. And there's always
Mm-hmm.
a faction that says, oh my goodness, everybody's going to lose their jobs. This is going to be a net negative. There's no way we're going to get out of it. And in every case, they were right. There were individuals that were displaced by the new technology. That's what technology does. But at the same point, if we fast forwarded just a little bit, every time, literally every time, there were more jobs available because the technology created opportunities that we didn't even imagine beforehand. Prime example would be, in the, and I'll say old days, back in the 1950s, for example, and 60s and even 70s, there were people in IT and information technology, but those were massive players like IBM and companies that are now out of business that I can't remember their names of. We didn't have computer networking professionals in every possible municipality, and generally lots of them in every municipality. We didn't have people that were managing all that were helping us manage cybersecurity. None of that existed. But now, because of the PC, because of the internet and all that, now because of AI, we have, cybersecurity, for example, is one of the fastest growing fields in the world right now because of AI and other things that are going on. And that field didn't exist or hardly existed 20 years ago at all. And now it's one of the fastest growing, highest paying fields that's out there. So yes, we are going to find that some people are absolutely going to be displaced, but I do believe that we're going to have far more jobs created. In what areas, I really don't even know yet. I think that we haven't even begun to see the types of things that are going to be happening and the types of opportunities that are going to be opened up because of AI. Ultimately, I think a lot of it, I think the real systemic change that we're going to see is it's going to allow more and more individuals to work in what I would call a gig economy. In other words, the days of having to go work for a large corporation and show up on the factory floor and do your job and come home in order to be able to live a decent life are over. We're going to be able to, you're going to be able to look and go, I love music and I can use AI and learn how to use it to write some really great music. I don't have to write tons of music to make a decent living. I just need, maybe 1,000 customers every year to make a great living. And that's very different than having to work for a large monolith or corporation or things like that. There'll still be people that do that. Our governments, of course, aren't going to, they're going to be the last ever to scale down. So, of course, that's going to be there. But I think that's where we're going to see more shift is that while I can't say exactly what areas and what jobs they're going to be, I think we're going to have a lot more opportunity as individuals to be working again in independent capacities in a way that meets our particular passions and interests.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think we're gonna have actually more jobs at the end, if you will. We have to. It always happened before. History tends to repeat itself, so we will see more of that. It's just interesting to hear different perspective from people, what kind of jobs we have. And
Yeah.
I was watching somebody explaining all these new types of robots they're building to like do plumbing jobs and digging like ground for whatever reason and things like that. All these really hard jobs and dangerous jobs. And AI and robots will replace all of that, which is good because the people can go and do something else and safer. They don't have to hurt themselves anymore.
No,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So, for those people who are scared and maybe they still have time, we all still have time to do something about it. What would you recommend to start upskilling yourself with? What kind of tools to learn and things like that?
Well, one of the greatest things about AI tools is that they are tremendous tools to help us learn. So if you feel you're in that situation where you need to learn, start using AI to do that. We don't necessarily need to go out and buy any courses. It's probably the first time in history that certification courses, at least in my opinion, are essentially worthless. And the reason they're worthless is that certifications are offered in order to be trustworthy. They need to be offered by an accredited institution. We refer to those as universities pretty much around the world. The problem is they're so bureaucratic. Then AI is changing so fast that the program that the university is putting in place for next fall, which they've now just defined, is based on things that happened a year ago in AI. That means by next fall, that lesson will be a year and a half old. And in AI, that means it's irrelevant. Not even less useful, it's irrelevant. So certifications that we typically would look to are going to higher education in order to learn and get a better degree. I believe largely irrelevant with AI. We actually need to start using the AI to analyze what we do. Have it interview you. Go to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and say, here's what I do now. I'm worried about, upskilling. What do I need to learn to do with AI so that I can become more valuable to my employer, more valuable to my community? Ask those questions and AI will give you a list of things to learn, and then it'll actually help you learn those as well because it's essentially been trained on every book and every library and a lot more. So it has that knowledge to help train you in those areas. And you can, if you have your own initiative, you can become that expert in what you do. And now you're more sought after and more valuable, and likely you're going to make more money as a result as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And then also kind of similar question for businesses, how AI is changing this whole notion of innovation and inventions. Is it gonna, how do you think it's gonna change how businesses innovate?
That's a great question. I think businesses are going to innovate much faster than what they typically have done. We're going to have the ability to go from idea to minimum viable product in sometimes in days instead of in months or years. And I think we're going to see a lot more innovation as a result of that. We're certainly going to hear some great stories of failure along the way because people are going to try some things that aren't going to work as well. But in that process, I think we're going to see innovation just catapult ahead at a rate that you and I have never seen in our lives before.
Yeah. So, like we talked about the government. Well, you mentioned government a little bit that they're always laggers, and there may be some people also. So there are always going to be people that are skeptical and left
Absolutely.
behind and things like that. How do you think we should like motivate them maybe or show them like successful examples and show them that it's nothing to scare about with AI to get them like on the same page with everybody else basically?
Well, I think there's a lot we can do to share success stories and share how AI is helping us in doing the tasks that we do. I think the reality is that in every country we have a major media of some sort. There's that's controlling that, and that is also, again, tends to be a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator of what's going on. In other words, they tend to be slow in responding to a lot of things, especially trends in that. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time for the media to start seeing all of these things, and maybe the media leaders to start then going, hang on, we need to do some things here. But just as is happening in the US right now, so just this week, all the major AI companies in the US went to the US government and said, hey, our US school system, and I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the US, our school system has kind of taken the position that AI is evil and we don't want anything to do with it. And if we do that, our children are going to be left in the dust. And we need to step in and we need to tell the schools that this needs to be part of what we're doing. Now, while I'm not a fan of anybody telling anybody what to do, I think it's an example of what we're going to start seeing as it becomes more and more apparent that leveraging AI isn't an option. It's something that's going to become part of life. It's no different today. If we buy a new vehicle, it comes with GPS. You've got it built into the car. Now, you can certainly turn it off and choose not to use it, but it's already in the car. It's not something you get to add or choose. It's going to be there. And I think AI is going to become like that in many areas of life. It's just going to take some time for us as a society to get used to the fact that, we could effectively have something on our wrist or hanging around our neck as a lanyard or whatever that could hear what we're dealing with, listen to literally the conversation that you and I are having, and speak in my ear through the headphones that I have in to provide me answers in almost real time to the things that are going on. So, the next time at a conference in Mexico, I was in one a few months ago, and I don't speak Spanish. We needed a taxi, and we were able to figure out how to get there. But I believe that we're very close to the point that I could use that device and literally in English speak what I wanted and have it translate in Spanish to my taxi driver who didn't speak English, and he would know exactly what I wanted and where I needed to go. And I think that's going to be happening very, very quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure of that as well. I think somebody already working on something like that. Google had this voice to text with translation. I help my mom with that a lot. She doesn't speak very good English, so she uses that sometimes. So it's half of it is already there, but have this real time conversation is really awesome. And then I also heard there's one company in Russia. They're training one model. It's kind of analogy with Google that they have. It's a search engine also. And they have trained their model to do this real-time translation. And the lead guy on this training said that the only problem with AI right now, it doesn't know how to deal with humor, especially in different cultures.
It definitely struggles with that. It does.
Right. So it was funny to hear that it doesn't translate humor really well.
No, it's very true. It struggles with that.
Yeah. And then another thing I wanted to mention is you mentioned education, and I saw this meme online when a professor basically used black font to write the assignment, and then in white font added at the end, like if pasted to AI, like change one number or change one letter somewhere, so I can catch it. And student actually highlighted it and show and says like, hey students, be careful, our professor using this tactic to catch if you're using AI. And I think it's kind of funny, but at the same time, I think educational institutions, they should teach AI and they should adopt their programs just like they adopted that everybody have to learn how to read like 2000 years ago or whenever that happened.
Absolutely.
Like 200 years ago, it was only very small population, a portion of population who could read. And that was terrible. So now everybody pretty much can read. Well, not everybody, but like 99.9%.
The vast
people.
majority, yeah.
Right. Same should happen with AI soon. Otherwise, people will be left behind.
Absolutely true. 100%.
Yeah. So we're almost coming in the end here, but I have a few wrap-up questions, if you will.
Sure.
So if you had to teach every person just one AI technique, in your opinion, what is that one most important thing that you would teach everybody?
AI is about a conversation. It's not about a one question, one answer. So I would teach everybody that when you ask AI a question and it gives you back a response, that you should ask a follow-up to that. You should not just accept what it's giving you. You should engage in a conversation.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's sometimes it can hallucinate and give you some wrong answer.
It can,
And then,
absolutely.
yeah, and then another one is what one of the myths about AI you want people to just understand that this is not true and move on.
I think that myth, more than anything else, is I think most people understand it's not sentient, but they really attribute feelings and emotions and intent to AI that's not there. I often hear AI lied to me or AI tried to deceive me. I even used earlier, I think you did too, AI hallucinates. Those are all human things that we do that AI technically doesn't do. AI just follows instructions. And when it gets confused, it follows the instructions that it was told to do when it gets confused, which is often to make things up. But AI didn't like choose to lie to me. It didn't choose to deceive me. It didn't go, well, this is the truth, but I'm going to tell Jonathan this, unless that's how it was programmed. But in each case, it still didn't choose to do that. Then it followed its programming. So I think that's the biggest fear that I would encourage people to understand is that AI isn't thinking on its own. It's following its programming. And sometimes its programming is very intricate and very excellent, but it's still doing what the programming told it to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's very good insight for people to understand. Just try different things, change your prompts
Absolutely.
and things like that. Verify, trust but verify, and things like that. Yeah. Are there any tools or prompts or techniques that you personally excited about to try, or maybe something new that will come out soon that you're waiting for? Anything like that?
I'm really excited about the next stage of what we call agentic AI, which is the ability for AI to take an objective, develop a task list, and then follow that task list fairly autonomously in order to achieve that objective. I think we're going to see the productivity gains we've seen have been massive, but I think we're going to take those truly to another level when the agents come out and really start working. There's a few that are available now. They're very early. They're impressive as they are. I think they're going to be far more impressive in 6 months.
Okay, all right, that's great. Yeah, I'm curious to see what AGI can give us. So we'll see.
Well, we need to define it first. That's part of the problem with AGI is we need to actually define
Yeah.
it, and the companies haven't even agreed yet. So I agree with you. It's exciting, but it needs to be defined. So we're working on the same playing field.
Yeah, it's also many people get scared because when they hear something like, well, imagine you have like the whole university or different disciplines and the top people from the whole population from each discipline. That's what that agent will be.
Yeah,
That thing will know absolutely everything that humans know up to date, and that scares people sometimes.
it
So,
does. Absolutely.
yeah. Okay. Well, do you have anything to say as an advice to people? Maybe something we haven't talked about and you wanted to leave the audience with?
No, I think we've really done a great job of covering a lot of it. I just want to encourage people, if you're not using AI on a regular basis, start trying to use it once a day. And then if you do that consistently, you'll quickly find that you're automatically going to start thinking of new ways that it can be helpful. It's nothing to be scared of. If we don't ask it to do something, it will do absolutely nothing. And so it's nothing to be scared of. Give it a try.
Yeah, great. Great advice. Thank you very much, Jonathan. It was a pleasure talking to you today. Wealth of knowledge.
Thank you, Vit. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.